Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone. In the dimly lit chambers of the Lateran Palace during the high noon of Christendom's military and spiritual ambitions, whispers of a mysterious Christian empire beyond the sands of Arabia captivated the papal imagination. Amid the papal maps, etched with guesses more than knowledge, lay the whispered name of Prester John, a mythical Christian monarch ruling somewhere in the east, perhaps in the unknown lands of India, or just maybe in the remote highlands of Ethiopia. While the thunder of Crusader boots echoed through the Levant and Jerusalem remained the glittering prize of a divided Christendom, the Vatican's gaze turned southward, toward the high plateaus of Abyssinia. There, behind the veil of Islam's dominance over North Africa, rumor had it that a powerful ancient Christian kingdom had endured, isolated yet resilient, apostolic yet exotic. This was no mere tale for fireside amusement or the ruminations of cloistered monks. For the Vatican, ever mindful of the shifting sands of political alliances and spiritual supremacy, the idea of a Christian ally in Africa was a tantalizing strategic prospect. Thus began one of the most overlooked but fascinating episodes of medieval espionage, the dispatch of papal envoys and spies to the Kingdom of Ethiopia during the Crusades. It was a mission born not of conquest, but of contact, a bid to reach across the Red Sea and the Nile, to find kin in the gospel and comrades in the struggle against Islam. At the heart of this mission was a complicated blend of faith, fear, and diplomacy. During the height of the Crusades, from the late 11th to the 13th century, Christendom faced profound military and spiritual challenges. The fall of Jerusalem in 1187 to Saladin shattered European confidence, while the repeated failures of successive crusades only deepened the desperation in Rome. The Church, especially under popes like Alexander III and Innocent III, began to consider broader horizons. If Jerusalem could not be held by force, then perhaps new alliances could be forged with distant Christian nations. The belief in a transcontinental Christian brotherhood, led by the elusive Prester John, was not a mere fantasy. It represented a powerful geopolitical hope. Ethiopia, then known as the Kingdom of Aksum and later Zagwe, had long been Christian, having officially adopted the faith in the 4th century under King Ezana, well before many parts of Europe. Isolated by the rise of Islamic caliphates across the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa, Ethiopian Christianity developed in unique indigenous ways, maintaining close ties with the Coptic Church in Alexandria but increasingly cut off from the Latin West. Despite this, tales of Ethiopia's Christian strength, wealth, and military capability reached Europe through Arab traders, pilgrims, and occasionally through Byzantine intermediaries. It was these reports that rekindled interest in what was perceived as a hidden ally behind enemy lines. The Vatican, aware of these reports, took cautious steps to verify them. The Church could not afford to waste precious resources on illusions, nor could it ignore the possibility that an independent Christian realm might harbor doctrinal differences, even heresies. The decision was made, covert missions were to be launched. Papal envoys, dressed as pilgrims or merchants, traveled through Egypt and Nubia, entering the Horn of Africa in secret. Their objective was twofold: to confirm the existence and orthodoxy of the Ethiopian Church, and to assess the kingdom's military and economic potential as an ally in the crusading cause. Among the most famous of these missions was that of the Franciscan monk brother Giovanni de Pien del Carpine. Though he did not reach Ethiopia, his missions to the Mongols set the precedent for papal intelligence gathering in foreign courts. It was the Dominican friars in the 13th century, however, who penetrated deepest into Africa. Reports reached Rome of Ethiopian rulers who claimed descent from Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, of monasteries carved into cliffs, and a vast gold wealth and holy relics rivaling those in Constantinople. By the early 14th century, the papacy under Pope Benedict XII had become actively involved in attempting to initiate direct diplomatic contact with Ethiopia. What made the Vatican's mission particularly delicate was the theological rift between the Roman Church and the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. The Ethiopians had long followed Miaphysitism,
a doctrine declared heretical by the Council of Chalcedon in 451, but upheld by the Coptic Patriarchate of Alexandria, under whose influence Ethiopia remained. Any alliance would thus require subtle theological negotiations, often conducted in secret, to avoid alienating either the Ethiopians or the Latin Christian powers. Vatican spies and theologians attempted to gather information on Ethiopian liturgy, scriptural interpretations, and ecclesiastical hierarchies, often through perilous journeys across the Islamic territories of Egypt and Yemen. By the 14th century, Ethiopian rulers such as Emperor Amdissayan had begun to respond to these overtures. Letters were exchanged, and Ethiopian emissaries appeared at the court of the Mamluk Sultan in Cairo, some of them possibly bearing coded messages intended for European audiences. The Vatican's diplomatic web extended into Islamic courts, where spies listened for rumors of Ethiopian movements and intentions. Trade caravans were monitored, and Arabic-speaking agents were sent to ports on the Red Sea under the guise of merchants. These operatives collected not only religious information but also geopolitical intelligence, army sizes, defensive structures, and regional rivalries. Perhaps the most dramatic moment in this silent diplomacy came in the 15th century, just beyond the conventional end of the Crusades, when a formal Ethiopian delegation arrived in Rome during the papacy of Eugenius IV. Though this occurred slightly outside the core Crusader era, it was the culmination of decades of Vatican espionage and correspondence. The Ethiopians were received with awe and curiosity, and their presence in the Holy See's chambers marked one of the first official recognitions of Ethiopia as a Christian state by Latin Christendom. Yet despite this diplomatic breakthrough, the Vatican's dream of a unified Christian front with Ethiopia never materialized. Geography, theology, and politics proved too formidable. Still, the legacy of those early papal missions remains a testament to the far-reaching ambitions of the medieval Church. The Vatican's use of spies, envoys, and theological investigators in Ethiopia reveals a nuanced vision of crusading that extended far beyond the battlefield, one that sought allies not only in Europe but in the shadowed kingdoms of Africa. This clandestine chapter in history, long overshadowed by the grand narratives of the Crusades, deserves fresh attention. It was in the wind-swept mountains of Ethiopia, not only the blood-soaked plains of Palestine, that the fate of Christendom was imagined, debated, and quietly pursued. The story of Vatican espionage in Ethiopia reminds us that medieval diplomacy was neither static nor insular. It was daring, global, and deeply human in its longing for connection and survival.